Hi class, welcome to this week's lecture. Hopefully you're doing well. I want to say again, great job on all your homework. Keep up the good work, and I'm very excited to see what you guys produce, especially as we get into our final project, which I'll be assigning this week at the end of the lecture. So just as always, I'm going to go over sort of like a table of contents of what this video will include. And right off the bat, there's something that I want you to do that's special this week. I want you to choose your favorite song or a track that really speaks to you, because the final project is going to be an album cover or a square formatted piece of artwork that's inspired by this song of your choosing. So this week, if you'll see in the module, there's a discussion that I'll point out later when I'm doing the assignment bit. But if you want to go do that right now, or if you know what song you have in mind, or just think about it. But this week, it's one of the things you have to do is drop your track in the discussions and share it with the class. It's sort of a means to break the algorithm in a way and share songs with each other. We've never been in the same room, in the same place, but yet we know each other through this temporary interface known as Art 10. And so I want to continue the roots of that creative influence through each other, through the internet, and through this class. So share your favorite track, share your favorite song. It could be a YouTube link. I think that's the best way to do it. And yeah, let's listen to some music. So that's first off. The next thing that I'm going to get to is I'm going to share with you a short talk about an artist called Julie Mehretu. And she's one of my favorite artists, and she uses color and composition in such a unique way and with such a exquisite attention to sort of a cosmic canvas of, it's almost like there's an explosion of confetti, but it's also a topographical landscape. There's also map making involved. She's very, very smart, does a lot of research, and does really big paintings that are a totally unique way of composing through layers and transparencies and colors. So I really think you'll enjoy that, and I always enjoy talking about Julie. So this is a lecture that I made, and I hope you enjoy that. And then after Julie Mehretu, I'm going to give you the assignment, and like I said, it's the final one. It's album cover, and it's special also because you have about almost 2 weeks to do it. So you have a lot more time. It's due the last Friday of the semester. So not a week from now, but sort of like a week and 4 days. So it's not due on Monday, it's due on Friday. You'll see that on the calendar. And I'll show you some examples of some album art, and I will show you some examples of some student album art from my previous classes to show you what students have achieved and what sort of the level that I'm expecting from you, or beyond, which I would be very happy to see. And I'm sure many of you are capable of expressing yourselves on very high levels through the color and composition strategies that we have discussed in this class. And one final thing, guys, and this is something that I want everybody to do. And I'm kind of unhappy with the quality of the comments in the sketchbook party. So most of the comments that I'm seeing are too basic. I think you guys are smarter than the comments you're leaving. Too many of the comments are like, I like it. It reminds me of this. Or I like it. Very just, I like it, I like it, I like it. That's great that you like it. Fair enough. Fair play to you. That's very positive encouragement. It makes us want to go further and continue our artwork. But the comments are also a place where you can practice your visual vocabulary. And that's really what I want you all to do. I want you guys to push a little further. Describe the type of mark making that the artist is using. Describe the color relationships. Describe the position of the major elements in their sketch or their painting or whatever they've made. Describe the focal point. Describe the color scheme. Use the terms that we've been discussing in our lectures to bring a dialogue around artwork like this is a great space to do that. Like I know you, if this is your first like foray into talking about and making art, you might not be so confident and comfortable to speak in this way with these vocabulary words, but don't worry about that. This is the safest place to do it, and I really want you guys to do it. I want you guys to do it so much that if you don't use vocabulary words from the lectures, you won't get any points in the comments. No points if you say I like it. That doesn't count anymore. It's been great so far, but not anymore. We are in the final stretch, so really like flex your muscles, flex your vocabulary, show me what you got. Let's bring a real conversation into the table. That's the table of contents, guys. So enjoy the lecture. Now let's get into Julie Mehretu. For me, Julie Mehretu encapsulates this sense of deep space, awe, architectural forms, discombobulation, energy. When I look at her work, which are giant pieces, often more than 10 foot by 20 feet or 10 foot by 15 feet, it really allows me to step into the work and investigate little pockets of space, little networks. It's like when I look at the work, I think about computer networks, but also exploded time and comics, of course. The way that the architectural drawings combined with the bright colors, that really hits me as someone who is reproduced and culturally programmed to appreciate comics and fine ink work. There's always a sense of explosive mark making in her paintings, mixed with super clean, hard lined work, pen work. When I look at her work, it makes me want to make art. It makes me want to jump in, makes me want to draw. I'm inspired by just the pure visual quality of it and the scope of energy and creativity that goes into making these things. She makes these little clusters of ink expressions that she calls characters. This painting, I always, whenever I see it, I saw it recently in public. She has a show. Her retrospective is at the Whitney Museum in New York. I was back east over the summer, and I got to see it. And there's this exploding chicken in the corner here that I just started laughing at in the middle of the museum. This is, and then when you look up close, it's nothing but like a red ink splat and some black lines jutting backwards, but it's just this screaming existential character looking at this exploded time. And there's these lines that radiate outward. All the while there's these little explosions, and then there's this fine and searching pen and ink work that reminds me of smoke coming out of like a Japanese landscape. So there's many different associations I have. This is a detail. As you can see, there's this almost computer generated, or let's call them CAD drawings, computer like architectural CAD drawings layered up against the background with these hard edge flat color shapes, and then expressive ink marks dancing across the top of it. This is another detail of a painting that is predominantly architectural, computer generated architectural drawings that are projected and then painted onto the surface very painstakingly with lots of assistance. This is a good example of a translucent color shape. So it's translucent. You can see the light there. You can see the the black and white line work behind it, but also it's taking up compositional space. And sometimes Julie will bring back things from the background. So I'll explain her process a bit later, but really what it is layered drawings on top of each other, separated by a silica spray, which is a transparent spray medium to keep the surface super smooth. This is a piece called Transcending the New International. Rendered in layers of black India ink and acrylic, the painting has its underlying structure, the city plans of the major economic and political capitals of Africa. On its surface, she made complex line drawings of indigenous, colonial, and modernist architecture in the post-colonial period. Design schematics for a city in Abuja, Nigeria, for example, are submerged under a flurry of characters that stage battles, form alliances, and ravage plans for the urban gathering space. Although the painting refers to the derailed promises of African independence, it is more fundamentally a hopeful speculation on the futures that reveal and imagine locations it depicts. Like all her paintings, this one speaks not only to the tragic aspects of history, but also to its moments of liberation and freedom. A short bio about Julie Mehretu. She was born in 1970 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. In 1977, she moved to Michigan with her family to escape a brutal socialist dictatorship. She was raised in Michigan. She studied art at RISD, and at a very young age, she started showing and selling work, while all the while remaining protected and true to her own thing. I just want to speak about the significance of her being from Ethiopia, which, if y'all aren't familiar with the geography, it's on the eastern coast of Africa, right over here. Ethiopia is an African nation that was never colonized by a European force. Ethiopia, or Abyssinia, has many Afro-Asiatic speaking communities with unique cultural practices that were not oppressed by European powers during a time when many nations were colonized, exploited, their people abused, and resources extracted. Julie is heavily ingrained in mapping and architecture and history. Mehretu is the daughter of an Ethiopian professor of geography, which could be a contributing factor to her interest in investigating visual history through mapping. There's this part of Ethiopia called Lalibela, which is outside of Addis Ababa, where Julie's from, where there is a series of 12th century buildings that are carved down into the stone. So there's negative space and then positive space where an architectural structure exists. These are holy places. Ethiopian Orthodox and Christian histories both share history here. So in the mountainous regions at the heart of Ethiopia, some 645 kilometers from Addis Ababa, 11 medieval monolithic churches were carved out of rock. Their building is attributed to King Lalibela, who set out to construct the 12th century a new Jerusalem after Muslim conquest halted Christian pilgrimages to the Holy Land. Lalibela flourished after the decline of the Ascom Empire. So King Lalibela wanted to build a site, a super holy religious site, because the Christians of Ethiopia wanted to go visit the Holy Land, but there was conflict, so they couldn't make it. So they had their own holy space here. The churches were not constructed in a traditional way, but rather were dug out from the living rock of monolithic blocks. These blocks were further chiseled out, forming doors, windows, columns, various floors, roofs, etc. This gigantic work was further completed with an extensive system of drainage ditches, trenches, and ceremonial passages with openings to hermit caves and catacombs. So this is a UNESCO historic spot, like one of the 7 wonders of the world type place. Untouched by war. Here's another image of a section of Lalibela. Some people praying. And here's what it looks like inside. This next sequence I'm going to show is from a PBS documentary series called Africa's Great Civilizations, as presented by Henry Louis Gates Jr., who is a historian, a filmmaker, and the director of the Hutchins Center for African and African American Studies at Harvard. So the reason I'm showing this is to, kind of put ourselves in the mindset, the driver's seat of Julie Mehretu, the sort of research that she might have done, the sort of world of ideas, histories, and images that she thinks about to produce her work, and sort of more deeply understand how the surface level maps and topographical drawings that she does is a portal to a history that she's interested in discussing. This is sort of how many artists think and work. They use the visual language that they create as seeds for the curious of mind, and scholars and artists and students like yourselves can lead us into a deeper understanding of the history.
Africans and Europeans have been trading on the east coast of Africa for at least 2,000 years. This book, written in Greek in the 1st century AD and called The Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, describes a key African port on the Red Sea, and it's called Agilis. The Periplus of the Erythraean Sea is one of the most remarkable texts surviving from the Roman Empire. A TripAdvisor guide written by an enterprising Greek merchant. It describes the ports and trading partners he encountered along the Red Sea. Agilis is the maritime gateway to an African kingdom that would become one of the most powerful in the ancient world, Aksum. The great Persian religious leader Mani described Aksum as one of the 4 great empires of peer with Rome, Persia, and China. At its height, it dominated the whole of the Horn of Africa and stretched across the Red Sea deep into southern Arabia. Imports flowed into Agilis: copper and bronze goods, silver, gold, olive oil, and wine, with ivory, rhinoceros horn, and even turtle shell going the other way. This control over Agilis makes Aksum rich, providing a gateway between the interior of Africa and ports on the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean. The Periplus includes a colorful account of one Aksumite king, Zakala, who reigned in the middle of the 1st century AD. His Greek trading partner describes him somewhat enviously as miserly in his ways, but otherwise upright. Aksum grew wealthy through stiff tariffs on trade through its port at Agilis, while inland, fertile soil nourished by 2 rainy seasons yielded bumper crops annually. In the center of the city of Aksum, once the capital of this stunning empire, stand some of the most remarkable monuments of the ancient world. These large vertical phallic symbols were erected in honor of the glory of the king. Under solid blocks of syenite, the king's body was laid to rest. This park is a memorial ground of the civilization. Over 100 stelae erected between the 3rd and 4th centuries AD as grave markers for Aksum's elite. They're taller than any other monoliths crafted in the ancient world. I asked Dr. Ababal Gela to explain to me how architecture on this scale could have been created back then. Ababal, how in the world did they move this huge slab here from another place?
They brought these stones from distance of 5 kilometers to the west.
As one big unit.
As one big unit.
This fragmented column, estimated to weigh 700 tons, is one of the largest single pieces of stone ever carved by sculptors. Scholars believe that it buckled as it was being erected.
The carving process, they definitely used chiseling. So they must have used iron chisels.
So the artwork took place right where it would be erected.
So the carving might have taken probably 10 years, 9 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
How long did it take to move it from the quarry?
Probably they can drag it a distance of 10 yards or 15 yards a day. That might have also taken them about 3 years.
Do we know for whom this stela was created?
We don't know certainly, but if we see fragmentary historical sources, and then some evidences from archaeological excavations that are made at different times in this area, this stele seems to be made for Al-Ameda. Al-Ameda the first.
And when did he live?
The second half of the 3rd century.
King Al-Amida, also known as Usanis, ruled during the golden age of Aksum. Gold coins embossed with his face and name and inscribed in Greek were recently unearthed in India, 2,000 miles away.
Damn.
We think that Usanis' son, Izana, who would become one of the most famous kings of Aksum, was memorialized by the other great stelae on this site. A network of chambers lie buried beneath these towers. That's amazing. Look at those shafts of light.
Yeah.
Now, what was in the chambers on the right as opposed to the chambers?
These are tombs of kings. So on this side they deposit the body of the king, and then on this side they deposit the valuables of the kings.
Not like in Egyptian pyramids when they would bury the king with his possessions. Here they put the possessions here and the body there.
Yeah, the body and the possessions in different directions.
90% of ancient Aksum remains unexcavated beneath the city's modern buildings. But sculptural reliefs on the stela are signs of its grandeur.
As you look up the stele, you see story after story of windows. There's even door frames with handles, which you could open if you had the right kind of power.
This was a city of 20,000 people. At its heart stood a monumental palace, adorned with bronze statues, and its grand processional ways were lined with granite victory thrones. Aksum's power was founded on its wealth, and its wealth on the rich resources of its unique position on the Horn of Africa. But one of its many extraordinary resources was paramount: frankincense.
Frankincense was an international commodity and brought a lot of religious prestige because incense has magical powers.
An aromatic gum resin produced from the bark of a tree that grows in the highlands of Ethiopia, Somalia, and southern Arabia. Frankincense was as valuable at the height of the Roman Empire, pound for pound, as gold.
It grows very high up in a very harsh environment. It's very hard to access it. People almost go on a pilgrimage, if you like, to get this as a very sought after commodity. This led to long distance trade.
By the 5th century AD, through expansive trade and war, Aksum had established itself as not just one of the great African empires, but one of the great empires of the entire ancient world.
There's a fascination with, outside of Julie's work, with mapping geographical and architectural spaces. These technologies are also used for facial mapping recognition. But I found this website that is dedicated to the 3-dimensional mapping of the ancient city of Lalibela in a project called the Zamani Project. And it uses I believe it uses LiDAR to, and I'll get to what LiDAR is in a minute, to build out, oh my goodness. So here we have the view of the interior from below of the St. George, I would call it the St. George sculpture, St. George Cathedral in Lalibela. And so what this is, how this is created is, I mean, you guys can tell if you ever use Google Maps, looks very similar to Google Maps. And how that is done is with something called LiDAR, which is laser radar. And why we need to know about this is because, one, it's how the world and urban environments are currently being mapped from the inside out. Escape. And how it works is lasers are beamed out of a device, and then they are sent back like radar, like sonar, like how bats can see, bounce back into a lens that's a computer that creates a set of points. Then that point set can be mapped to create an image like this. There's an interesting overlap between science and art in a couple different ways here. Like, this is super fascinating to look at, but it's made with the intent of studying archaeology, historical preservation through LiDAR and photography, and access on an internet level to those who can't visit. But it's really grounded in archaeological science to look at as an artist as well. As what I imagine a lot of the inspiration for Julie's work comes into play. So this is an image of some of the layouts, the different layouts of Lalibela. Like here we have St. George and some of the different areas. So this is a good aerial view, an aerial map, which is a lot of what Julie Mehretu is inspired by. Mehretu's process. Layered drawing is crucial to Mehretu's process. Each layer, be it a projection of an architectural drawing, an array of ink brushwork, or hard-edged shapes of sweeping color, each layer is separated by another layer of transparent medium applied with a spray gun and sanded over to a perfect finish, and then a new layer is painted or applied on top of that. Mehretu's paintings often have over 100 layers. This is a short film from Art 21. Full screen.
There is no such thing as just landscape. The actual landscape is politicized through the events that take place on it. And I don't think it's possible for me in general to ever think about the American landscape without thinking about the colonial history and the colonial violence of that narrative. The abolitionist movement, the Civil War, the move towards emancipation, all of these social dynamics that are part of that narrative, we don't really talk about in regards to the American landscape paintings. And so, what does it mean to paint a landscape and try and be an artist in this political moment? The color in these paintings really came out of blurred photographs that were embedded inside of the underpaintings. The sirens and the flames of race riots was the way to embed the paintings with DNA so that I could respond from a deeper place. I'm gonna go upstairs and take a look. Yeah, I'm excited. Mary Goodman contacted me, telling me that SFMO was interested in doing this commission before the new museum opened. I went several times to San Francisco to visit the museum. I was there staring at this very cavernous open space with these two walls, and I started to think about the national parks and the representations of American landscape painting. And specifically, when I came back, I kept thinking about the Hudson River Valley school painters like Edward Church, Thomas Cole, Bierstadt, because they really encapsulate that idea of going westward. I started to layer the blurred color images into these historic landscape paintings. Just prior to emancipation, Native Americans of the Sierras and the western frontiers were completely annihilated by this expansionist project. What was interesting was that aspect of both annihilation and then preservation shortly after can exist on the same geographic landscape. San Francisco then, as a site, became important because that was this destiny of going out west. How are you doing? Jason Moran wrote me after seeing some paintings, and he talked about them as a score.
Just trying to start.
And I was super interested in that.
How's it going?
And so we started working together here in a very, very loose and open way. It's kind of an amazing thing to paint in a church. Everything kind of reverberates back into here, energy-wise, consciousness-wise, and everything that has taken place this year in my personal life, with my children, with what has happened politically. All of that is immersed in these paintings. All of these brutal killings of black people in this country and the black body. The Trump-Hillary dynamic. It was disgusting to witness. There was something in that language that's visceral. When a person speaks so horrifically towards another being, that's deeply wrenching. The discomfort of being a person living and working in the United States is a place that I think these paintings were being made from.
Every room defines one tone, and it's like the room tone, you know. It's the tone that makes it resonate. And I started to find some of that in the note A flat. I started to build around that, and then every once in a while look up and see where Julie was in her work. And then slowly, like, I started to look at my sheet of paper not as a place that had a start and a finish, but that all of it could be composed on different moments.
I made a little section where you taking stuff away. Like I made you a little a little part that's like, I'm taking this away.
America is a country still in the adolescent stage. Doesn't know how to deal with its emotions. Doesn't know how to deal with its history. Doesn't want to dig in the ground to know what artifacts are under it. And so jazz, I always say, has been that form of music that's been the model of letting people know what's happening. It's always been like that. And so we recorded the music because we should document the moment and also share the moment too.
I really try to think about painting in terms of the construction or making of an image, dealing with things that we don't have proper language for. I kind of start to think of them as these visual neologisms. The neologism is there to address when language isn't enough. Through repetition of the mark, there's this desire of trying to invent something. At a certain point, I wanted to bring elements of the underpainting to the surface so that it further complicated spatially how you were seeing these.
And this one connects to 45.
When you're looking at these paintings, they're not graspable. There are moments where they reference Renaissance Ascension painting and then other moments that feel digitized. At least for me, they're not something I feel like I could give any kind of articulation of what's happening fully. I love California. There's this grandeur to the coast and the way the coast reaches the ocean, and when you're driving through the Bay Area, it's just majestic. I feel like I have 100 other paintings I want to make because I've learned so much in making these. I'm not going to try and take a break or stop working. There's a lot of creative momentum in finishing these paintings. I have a lot of ideas that I want to investigate, and I'm excited about that.
To close out the lecture, I'm just going to run through this slideshow of some of Julie Mehretu's work and allow you guys to take it in and watch it and experience it as you will. this is what the week 7 module looks like. There's a couple of things I want to point out before I get to the assignment. And first off, there is a thumbnail demo, tips to drawing thumbnails video that is very helpful. I want you guys to watch it. It's a good video about generating quick sketches and compositions that you can then use to design your final piece with. So gotta watch that. And then there's something it's called the composition idea sheet, and it's super helpful. Here it is. Cool. It's like a little sheet that has really cool, easy, effective thumbnails, essentially little drawings that show quick ways to build your composition. Remember, the composition is how the objects and elements are arranged within the format of your canvas, whether that's horizontal or vertical. So this is just by blocking in quick shapes into your space, you can really build a cool composition around simple ideas. A pyramid, an S, an L. But anyway, this is a little sheet for you guys to use as you will, and hopefully it can help you find some little tricks to make a composition for your final project. Cool, here we are now. Oops. Album cover. So this is your final project. Album cover. In this final project, you will create a stunning piece of album artwork based on a song, artist, or album of your choosing. It's artwork that makes you say, whoa, what is this? This looks amazing, whatever it is. I want to listen to this music. It's a visual experience in partnership with the sonic experience of the music. Album artwork can be as memorable, evocative, and beautiful as any art form. So make this a personal project to you and show your classmates part of yourself through your art and a song, artist, or album that speaks to your human experience. The learning outcomes are: realize a 12-inch by 12-inch square format composition in gouache. This has to be square format. Use your ruler, and you can use the washi tape to block out a square area to paint within. Demonstrate clear and intentional color, imagery, and composition choices in your artwork. Accurately mix and match paint colors based on visual observation of your reference materials. Develop sensitivity to color, value, and visual detail through close observation. Explore appropriation and gathering good reference materials. Reference materials, guys, that's you can pull images from magazines, you can pull images from Google, you can observe things in real life, but you can also reference materials are what you use to paint from. So you only want to gather enough for what you need. So essentially the thumbnail sketching part of the project, that's when you come up with just a quick drawing of what you're going to paint. And based on that thumbnail, you say, okay, I need, for example, a guitar, a horse, and a tree. Or I'm going to make it up from my imagination. You could do that too. But if you want to sort of try and grid out something or paint from real life, you got to get those reference images. That's what reference image is for. Reference image is something you can refer to help you paint. And another learning outcome is explore appropriation and gathering good reference materials. If you're going to gather reference materials, make sure they're useful, make sure that the quality that you want, make sure that they're going to be the angle that you want. Sometimes, as we talked about in, say, like Dada, appropriation is when you know where the source of the material came from, so the audience then has another level of visual experience with the artwork. They can say, oh, that's referencing this other thing. It's like if you use Bart Simpson in your painting, the whole audience knows it's Bart Simpson, but you're taking Bart Simpson and you're remixing it. That's reappropriation. So, and another learning outcome is use design vocabulary to describe and critique visual choices. These are your materials. The process: choose your song, listen to it many times. As many times as you need to. And as you listen to it, sketch thumbnails, generate ideas, no judgment, just let it rip, free form, develop ideas, little drawings in little squares on your sketchbook. You could also write down words. You could also play with the colored pencils. Just let some ideas flow. And then when you are done doing that, you'll have a bunch of ideas, and then you will choose the best one you want to develop. Next, do a set of thumbnails or loose planning sketches to help you plan out your composition based on your favorite brainstorm. These can include color studies, color composition studies, or just thumbnail studies. Also include value studies. With the pencil thumbnails, it's best to do a lot of them and choose the best composition among your studies. So back to this, what is thumbnail? Refer to the video that I just described to see what thumbnails are. Thumbnails are quick, loose, free-form sketches, pretty much. Then, once you've gathered your reference materials, you can use the grid method to lay out your drawing, or you can draw by hand. Remember the grid method, guys, from the past 2 assignments? You can use that for this assignment. And then you go ahead and paint. So some additional requirements. One additional requirement: your piece must be in a square format, 12 inches by 12 inches. You must paint an element of text in your composition. For example, the song title, the artist, or something else. Treat the text with as much craft, creativity, and consideration as you would other elements. Use it as a compositional element. So just to reiterate, guys, you need to use a little bit of text in this composition. It can be one word, it can be super simple, it can even be a couple letters, just to practice composing with text. If you have text, you can paint based on a font that you choose, or you can paint by hand, but make it clean, make it good. Don't just scribble some word on there. Make sure you are considering where you're placing the text in your composition. Cool, so let's look at some examples of some album art. So this is in the module. This is called album cover examples. I'm just going to go through these real slow, but you can look at them on your own later. The variety of these is cool because they go from super simple to super complex. And this one's interesting because, okay, so the elements are bees, clouds, the sort of faded sky from red to yellow, landscape, sunflowers, and a figure of Tyler, the creator, right? So the elements you would need to find your reference materials, you would need to get if you were painting this, you would need a reference for a bee or multiple bees, a reference for clouds, reference for landscape, reference for sunflowers, and probably a photo of your friend, or if your friend is Tyler, all the better, a photo standing in this exact position. A reference photo of a model is probably the best reference photo you can have for a figure. So if you have a figure in your composition, ask a buddy, ask a roommate, ask a brother, sister, parent, whatever, to stand somewhere in the correct lighting and just snap a quick photo with your iPhone, and then you can paint based on that photo. either using the grid or just draw it as best you can. Yep, this is a good example of how to break down references. It also kind of ties into the way we practice with the collage, like gathering reference materials is sort of like collaging in a thumbnail sketch. So you're gathering these few ideas together, what you're going to paint, what you're going to draw, and then you need to pull them together in the painting in the sort of spirit of collage. So of course, in the world of your painting, it's going to be the first time that these elements have been together. Tyler, the bees, the clouds, the sky, just like this. This is not a painting of a real thing. This is from the artist's imagination. So you, the artist, use your imagination to put things together and then gather reference materials to support your vision. Just going to look at some other examples. This is more simple, more graphic. Centralized composition, symmetrical but also chaotic, organic. Rigid straight lines mixed with curvy lines. Anna Tijoux, a great artist if you don't know her. Figurative but very graphic, but has patterns overlaying the graphic areas. Organic material with figurative. This would be if you were to do this, something like this, you would want to take a photo of someone in this pose. This is very just kind of drawn from the imagination. If you're into just drawing from your mind, like I do, comic style, flat shapes of color. This is interesting because it's flat shapes of color with small mark making, like pen or ink on top of, in our case, it's the gouache. That's just one way to do it. See the small scratchy lines? Those are a pen or a marker on top of flat shapes of gouache. This one is too big. Let's shrink it down. Oh my goodness. Low end theory. Oops. This one is just kind of the same idea as that one. Comic book-esque, flat shapes of color next to each other. Oh, I gotta pause because there's jackhammering. Great, the jackhammering has stopped. Now I'm in the student art example. So now we're in some selections, some really cool album covers that some previous students of mine made, and it'll just give you a better sense of the level of completion and execution that I'm expecting. So here's one, super great. I think this composition though is missed opportunity to put the text in the sky. The sky feels kind of empty, and also I wish this student had gotten references for clouds and painted clouds that had a bit more contrast to them. The shadows were a bit deeper, darker than the lights. More nuanced cloud forms instead of just kind of messy, unthought out brush strokes. You know what I mean? But the rest is cool. But yeah, text is okay. Here's one that's got a little bit more considered text. And as you can see, one of the students used colored pencil. So you can use a little, and also collage. If you guys want to use a little bit of colored pencil in collage, that's okay. Maybe like 25%, but don't do the whole thing. Most of it should still be gouache. Look how great her eyes are. And she got references for the eyes. She got references for, I guess that's John Cougar Mellencamp. But yeah, excellent work. Something like this would be great. Also something even simpler like this, conceptual. This was a piece that a lot of thumbnail work to come up with what the artist eventually decided to paint. Kind of strange land and sky body formation. Very cool, very unique. I've never seen quite anything exactly like this. But again, the text leaves something to be desired. So you guys do a little better with the text. Use it as a compositional tool, not an afterthought. Something more, maybe more like this. This is much stronger text, where the text is placed almost fully in the background against this beautiful rainbow gradient with a beautifully painted hand. The only thing I wish maybe the text was a stronger color choice and didn't get lost. Here's another student's work for the album The Song Everlong by the Foo Fighters. I don't know if you remember the music video, there's a gag with a giant telephone. So the artist, to do this painting, she took a photo or found a photo of this telephone. It's a perfect reference image, and she used the grid method to grid it out and paint it. So if you guys are using the grid, you will have to print somehow. But there's also ways you can do it with your phone or computer where you can add a grid on top of your image. And if you're interested in seeing how to do that, I can show you. But again, the text leaves a little bit to be desired. I feel like maybe the text should have been a little bit harder edged, a bit bolder, and also gotten fatter as the shape of this purple got fatter. This one's just lovely, beautiful sun radiating corner, the red and orange, red, orange. Excellent, sort of a shipwreck or a castle made of, oh yeah, and so castles made of sand slips into the sea eventually, from Jimi Hendrix. But yeah, she got the references. And you guys, because we don't have to be like a virtuosic Renaissance painter, but use big shapes of flat, clean color to compose the piece. That's all I'm really looking for. You don't need to render like Kehinde Wiley or Rembrandt. This one, I think, came out super well. Big, like the text was very well considered. The O of the sun extends down into orbital, which comes down here. Nice galactic effect. Beautiful work. And same for this one. Look how Rush is getting cut off at the bottom. Very interesting choice. But yeah, so this is in the module if you guys want to look at it and see the level of work that I'm expecting. All of it is, I'm sure you guys can really knock it out of the park. So go for it and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much for listening to this lecture, guys. Keep up the good work. I really appreciate all the hard work you've put in. Don't forget, drop your favorite track into the put your song discussions. I forget the name of it. And remember, make sure your comments are a little bit more profound, using vocabulary words that we've discussed in lectures. Show me your knowledge of the visual vocabulary that we have been practicing here. And yeah, thank you again. Good work. Hit me up if you have any questions, and I appreciate you. Talk to you soon. Peace.